Hello everyone, this is New Perspective. We invite you to share, like, comment and subscribe our channel. Stay with us.
Hi.
Hello, Kimberley.
How are you?
Which neighborhood you're living in the Parkdal?
In Swansea?
Oh, in Swansea. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area.
It's a great area, and I've lived here for almost 20 years.
It's a long time.
So I have been in this riding for a very, very long time.
You know
Today, we have a guest about women in politics. As you know, this week we are celebrating the 100 years anniversary of the election of Canada's first woman MP, and we invite Kimberley Wakefield, the candidate for Ontario Liberal nomination in Parkdale High Park. We discussed a lot about the role of women in politics and more. Once again, stay with us.
You know the detail in the riding in and out.
I really do. Every corner.
Exactly. That's great. Yeah, good to have you on my show.
Thank you.
This is a community radio and a newspaper. It's called the New Perspective. Adiskanyet in my native language, Amharic. So we are serving mostly the Ethiopian Canadians and the Eritrean Canadians and the Africans, but not limited to those communities. We are serving the general audience, Canadian audience as well. So, as you know, most of the communities and newcomers are not participating in a political landscape. That's why I'm trying to invite political parties and officials to my show and try to communicate with the community what they have for them. Now the upcoming election in Ontario is, I think, in June.
Yep.
So you are one of the candidates in the Parkdale High Park. So I hope you will be one of the last candidates. So when is the last date to decide the finalists?
Yeah, the vote is on December 11th.
December 11th.
So it will be decided on December 11th, which is not this weekend, but next weekend.
So how is it, to be the final candidate? What do you do, and how do you,
Well, I started off, I got a phone call actually. So I have been involved with the Liberal Party in this riding for a very, very, very long time. I started with Gerard Kennedy over 10 years ago now. And I've been involved in every election supporting the Liberal candidates since then, both provincially and federally. I've worked with Arif. I don't know if you've know about him. So he's our federal MP for the riding, Liberal. And so my friend called me, another woman who I've worked with in this capacity, and asked me to run. And often, women have to be asked to run. That's a common theme. We don't consider that, we can do it, and we have to be asked. And then once we get asked, we start to think, wow, there's a lot here. There's a lot I can offer. I'm a single mom.
Yeah.
I've lived in the riding for, like I said, almost 20 years. I raised my family here. My kids are now teenagers.
Yeah.
So I was very involved in the education, volunteering at their school, really getting to know the ins and the outs. I mean, Swansea is a really interesting neighborhood. You may or may not know, but it's, we have quite an eclectic group of people here in Swansea, and there's a bit of they all come together in the local school. Yeah. So I started to see that, and I started to work with kids, racialized kids, and trying to help cross the divide a little. and help working out. And so I've been doing that for a long time. I work with the Black Student Success Committee at Swansea.
Yeah.
And then with all the issues that were happening at Queen Vic, I went and helped the Black Student Success Committee there.
Yeah.
I was invited to help out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, now we had some issues with Parkdal.
Yeah.
So I was at that rally that happened at Parkdal, dealing with some of the systemic racist issues happening there.
Yeah.
So I've worked in equity in education for a long time.
That's really interesting. You touched the very heart of our current problem in the Parkdale High Park, the racism problem. I know Arif Barani, as federal MP, is doing his best to eradicate this issue for a long time.
Yes.
But the problem is still going. But what do you have at hand for this kind of situation that we are facing and this systemic problem?
Well, I think that it's going to take, and I actually have seen some movement of this.
Yeah.
I worked closely with a woman by the name of Ian Cayley. I don't know if you know her, but she is the president of the Black Student Success Committee at Swansea. Mm-hmm. She's a really active member. She spoke at that rally at Parkdale. And so we've known each other a long time. We're good friends. And she and I guess, she's been helping me to understand, one of the things I recognize is my own privilege, and that I feel very much like it's my responsibility to educate myself. So when I'm able to find people who are generous enough to help me learn and help me understand, that I feel very grateful for that. I feel very honored to be able to be invited in and to help to understand, because I think it's going to take that kind of collaborative effort on everyone's part to work together to make sure that all the voices are heard. And that I've seen data, for example, from the TDSB about how racialized kids perform. And that is the kind of data that helps us make some informed decisions, and explain to people what systems need to be broken down, or what systems need to be changed, or how things are so incredibly inequitable, and that it's a systemic issue. Yeah. So how do we tackle it as such? And how do we do it in a collaborative way so that we are, welcoming all kinds of different diverse voices to the table?
Interesting. And the other thing you mentioned is you're a single mom and you're a woman. Yeah. And when is the first time that universal suffrage and women allowed to vote in North America?
I think it's about 100. It's about 100 years ago.
100 years ago, but still the problem is there. So where do you think the problem is, from the women's side or from the society?
Well, I wasn't raised in I'm 50. So, I was raised in the 70s. I was raised in a very traditional family, and I wasn't, this was never on my radar. I never thought that I would run for public office, so it's a really big hurdle to get from there all the way to here. And what's interesting? It's funny you asked me that, because one of the people said to me, "Stop explaining yourself." These guys are not explaining themselves. They're not spending so much time justifying why they're there, why they're here, why their names are on that, right? And you're spending all this time, I I have 2 master's degrees and I have, lots of business experience and personal experience and, raising kids and all this stuff. And I'm spending all my time trying to justify why I'm here when that's, so it's inequitable. I'm making it inequitable myself, that I don't need to explain. I don't need to justify.
Now you act. Now you come to the
act, say I'm authentic.
Yeah.
I have done work in equity. And so I've worked for racialized kids. I've also worked for neurodiverse kids. I've worked to help. So I have a neurodiverse kid myself, and I've helped them navigate their way through the education system, sometimes with success and sometimes with struggle. So because I've learned so much myself, that's why I feel like I have the tools to help others and to help from the perspective of, what an MP could offer in terms of educational reform, knowledge, experience. And then I also, so professionally, I work as a positive psychology coach. So I have a master's degree in applied positive psychology, which is kind of like the science of well-being.
Yeah.
And so I've been helping people understand, how to lead flourishing, resilient lives. And I mean, I came to the work from personal experience and struggling through, really difficult divorce and a couple of major health issues. So I feel like I learned it from life experience and I now practice it professionally and I'm professionally trained. And one of the things, my colleagues and I have seen is that it's like a shadow pandemic of mental health.
Yeah, that's right.
So the other piece I'd like to bring my understanding and my knowledge and the models that I've looked at and pulled apart and used to help my clients on kind of a much bigger level to help this community that I have lived in, volunteered in, worked in, for almost 2 decades.
You're a single mom too. And what's the main problem in this country or in this city that a single mom faces? And what do you have for?
Well, one of the super frustrating things is this $10 a day childcare and the fact that the Ford government can't seem to make it happen. I think childcare is so important for women. It's so hard to go to work and to leave your kids somewhere that, you're not comfortable or you're working so hard just to be able to pay your childcare bills when you have things like housing affordability and all kinds of other issues that you're trying to struggle with. So I would love to see, the $10 a day childcare, because I think it would make such a difference for women. It helps you have the confidence to be able to go to work. It helps you not be distracted when you're there, that you can really put what you want. And, work can offer a lot to, an individual and certainly to a single mom's sense of confidence and sense of self. I think for single moms, it's hard sometimes to feel like you can do it on your own. You feel very vulnerable. You really feel like it's an extra layer of vulnerability that we need to work through, that $10 a day childcare could really help support.
And the Ford government didn't accept that.
And the Ford government has yet to, so Alberta has even signed on, and the Ford government, Ontario has yet to, and they're I'm not privy to the inner workings of the Ford government, thank goodness, but there's no sign of that happening. So, it's interesting. My kids are teenagers now, so we're way, way, way past the childcare issue, but I did have my kids in childcare when they were little. And, I still keep in touch with like the woman whose childcare I used. She just had a small, tiny little business at the time, and she's now grown it to multi-units in the riding, in the neighborhood. And it's just so great. I've been able to help her. I've been able to support her. I mean, one of the things, I think women are doing more and more is supporting each other and recognizing that we are stronger together. And I think, that would be nice to see that happen more as a community.
Yeah. So if, a person asks you, what are your priorities if you are elected as an MP for Parkdal High Park in the coming election, how do you prioritize your policies and
I sort of have three main policies. The first is to build equity in education for both racialized and neurodiverse kids. I think we talked already a little bit about my background and where that's come from. So it's a personal experience and also a lot of volunteer work in that area. And then the second is to bring this science of well-being to our community to address this shadow pandemic of mental health. I feel that the field that I have studied and worked in for the last 5 years really has a lot to offer in terms of helping people reconnect and helping people rediscover, a life that they live and maybe some strength and resilience within them they weren't sure they had before all this hit us. And the other piece of it too is to bring that to the more vulnerable folks. There are a lot of kids and people that I think have fallen through the cracks a little bit. So just to help support and uplift them, using that kind of platform. And then the third is, I've loved this riding and loved being able to do like my shopping and having small businesses, being able to support the local small businesses and, never having to leave the little riding that we are, going to get my yummy cookies at Craig's Cookies in Parkdale, and my little gym is in Parkdale. So, just being able to revitalize the small businesses in our community. Obviously we want to do it in a sustainable way. I think climate, we have to always have that climate lens on what we're doing. But I would love to see, small businesses, our neighborhoods be revitalized with small businesses. So those are the three.
Interesting. And you mentioned about this shadow pandemic issue. And do you have a concrete data about what it looks like in the Parkdale High Park riding, the mental health problem?
I don't have concrete data for the riding specifically, but there is data coming out in terms of talking about the costs, the hidden costs of, they're talking about the hidden costs of the pandemic in terms of mental health. So there's data around absenteeism, which, that individuals are struggling to be able to work because of mental health issues. You can see a lot of data about people leaving their jobs. There's a mass sort of exodus. This is not like, I don't have data on the riding specific, but, on the province and the country, we're seeing that across the board. So we're also seeing the usage of, mental health supports, a variety of mental health supports on the increase, certainly, and just anecdotally, when I'm talking to my colleagues, we're all sort of saying, wow, like our business, the demand for our services has really gone up. And like, I do want to say in terms of public policy, the other piece too is that can the Ontario government do a better job? Well, first of all, they absolutely can do a better job of supporting our, through OHIP, supporting mental health supports, like providing more funding for mental health support. We've seen the Ford government just cancel all the funding that was going to be made available to that. And I think now we need it more than ever. Interesting. So, and, mental health supports can like the variety that, my field has sort of developed in terms of all different modalities of therapies and ways to address mental health has really increased, and the research has really increased. So it would be great to see the government keep up with that and be able, because mental health support is not a one size fits all. It's not the same as other illnesses or, injuries. It's a lot more, I think there needs to be a lot more customized supports available. Different things work for different people. And because generally speaking, the mental health support sort of industry, if you can call it that, or field, we've come up with all kinds of different ways to support people, whether it's coaching or psychotherapy or, different modalities like Reiki or, even yoga or, meditation, mindfulness. Like there's been just, and pharmacology, there's been an explosion really of opportunities to help people. So it would be great if we could see the Ontario government support people's ability to pick and choose from a wide variety of support systems and modalities to help support, what they feel they need.
That's very interesting. I hope it's a very serious issue that needs to be addressed, and I hope you'll come up with a viable policy if you are elected. And to take you to the family issue, I saw that you wrote somewhere when you told your kids that you run for office, they cheer you up. And tell me about that.
Well, I think when kids are raised in a family with a single mom, it's a very different dynamic that is created. We suddenly realize how important each of us is to the other. And I think for better or worse, my kids had to grow up. So, and I had to drag my kids with me, on a lot of things. So in all the work that I've done in politics, I've sort of been dragging my kids with me, and they've had to go and attend this and attend that. And, I was like, "Ooh, look, you get to meet this person and that person." And they're like, who cares? Who is this person? But they, what happens is I think like subconsciously kids start to understand like this really means something to mommy. And then they start to understand this actually means something to everybody. Like this is important to people's lives and my community and my friends parents and my friends' families. As they start to mature, they start to see the significance of it. And so I think, this was in March of 2020. And so me and the kids had been under the same roof for a very long time, and we'd started to really like, everyone was taking a room, we weren't really interacting a whole lot anymore. They were sort of glued to their devices, I was getting kind of one-word answers and it was really, really hard. I mean, I'm smiling about it now because we've come so far, but in the moment, it was a very, very hard time. I think a lot of people had a very hard time as we were all, stuck together, cooped up. Yeah. And so when I suggested to them that that I might do this, I kind of got like and they kind of made eye contact with me and said, "Mom, I think that's a really good idea. I think you should do it." So I thought, if I can engage with them like that, what can I do for my community? What can I build?
It all begins at home.
It all begins at home.
Interesting.
It all begins at home. So I love that you said that.
That's really wonderful. I hope you have a great backup. So
Yeah.
I wish you'll make it and see what you do for your community and for your country as well. And what's your background like? I mean, what kind of where did you grow up in Ontario? I mean,
I consider myself a true like pan-Canadian. So my parents were born and raised in Montreal. So I have lots of family still in Quebec. I lived in Montreal I've lived in Montreal 3 different times. I lived in Montreal as a young child. I went to McGill for my undergrad degree. So I lived in Montreal again for 4 years. And then I lived in Montreal again when my kids were little. So, and then, other times I've also lived here in Toronto, but I did my MBA, my first master's degree at Dalhousie University in Halifax.
Yeah.
So I moved out to Halifax to the East Coast and like had a great time and lived out there after my degree for a few years. And then as a kid, I also lived in Vancouver. So I have lived in Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, and Halifax. So I feel like I've kind of like spread, I have that sense of the cross country experience.
That's a real Canadian experience.
It's a real Canadian experience. Yeah.
So do you think that you are able to address all the issues that comes from this very diverse city of ours, Toronto?
You know what I am really confident about? I'm really confident that I know how to listen. That I know how to listen, that I know how to ask questions, and that I know how to connect with people. So I think that really helps.
Absolutely.
I think that helps because people need to feel seen and heard, in a meaningful way. And I feel very confident in my ability to do that. I do it professionally. And so I feel very confident. So that, I almost look forward to that. Like, I think that's the part of the job that will be really exciting for me, is to be able to get into the community and hear from a diverse group. One of the things I love about Parkdale High Park is how diverse it is. Yeah. That's one of my favorite parts. I love being able to explore different neighborhoods. And I mean, I love that even about this city. The diversity that is here, is terrific. I do believe it builds strength. I do believe it builds understanding.
And as you know, new immigrants are coming,
Yeah.
and issues are arising. Yeah. And even recently, the Premier of Ontario said that opinion on public, and you remember what it creates. Yeah. And so when you see all these things, what do you think about the future of the immigration and immigrants in this country, and what their role would be when it comes to politics?
Well, I mean, I wanted to ask you, like, how do we get newcomers to get more engaged in the political process here?
Yeah, I mean, there is always that dichotomy, to see newcomers in a different way, and
Yeah.
So how do we create a smooth bridge between the old and the new? And
yeah,
I think politics has a big role to narrow down those gaps.
Yeah.
So
narrow down the gaps, and I'd like to think, provide the support, but also provide hope, provide opportunity.
Nice.
I would, I mean, obviously the current government I mean, one of the reasons I'm running is because we can't have another Ford mandate. I've been so disappointed on what has happened on so many levels, on what he's done in so many ways. So, certainly his remarks about newcomers is just absolutely offensive. And I think it should be offensive to all of us.
I think, Canada has a very impressive track record when it comes to refugees and immigrants, especially in recent years. So many things have achieved. The society is amazing when, it's very welcoming, but, it's not perfect. So I think politicians has to do a lot to make it better.
And one of the things I worry about in Canada is that we don't talk about it enough. We try to sweep it under the rug. We think that we are, being kind and gentle, but it's very dangerous when you don't talk about it. It's very dangerous when you don't acknowledge it. I think it's really important to acknowledge that we are not perfect, that there is.
Talking is a very important issue.
I think I think it's important that we talk about it. Let's not try and pretend that we are this, that there's no issues and that there's not racism, inherent in our society and systemic in our institutions. I think that needs to be acknowledged.
So as a psychologist, as your background helps you to bring this issue on table, and what kind of tools you use, maybe if you get elected, to bring this issues on table?
It's interesting that you're saying that, because yes, my professional background and training helps me understand the significance of that and provides me with the modalities and the experience and the practice to listen and ask questions. But it's my life experience that really gives it heart, that gives it authenticity. Like that's where that deep motivation comes from to fight for equity. It's what I've seen and lived and experienced that is really meaningful.
Very interesting. I think, Kimberley, we touched so many things. And before we wrap up, I hope I have to give you a chance. What do you expect in the upcoming candidacy and in the election? What your expectations are? And hopefully we meet after you're done.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, I am I am making sure that I am doing this with a lot of integrity and authenticity. I'm very clear at the equity that I am fighting for my community. So it's deeply personal to me. This is where I've been for a very long time. This is where I've raised my family. So it's deeply personal to me. It really does matter. It's going to affect me directly and my family directly and the people I care about directly. So, it's making sure that I'm authentic about everything I do and what I say and how I want to move forward. And I think it'll be really important in terms of strategically, as we move forward. I think the Liberal government is the one that is poised to beat, is the only party poised to beat the Conservatives and Ford's government. So I'm pretty passionate about building that party in that effort. That needs to happen. And we need to put all of our resources, and in Parkdal High Park, obviously we have an NDP MPP. And so she's, very popular. So it's about explaining that, the NDP hasn't done a great job in opposition of holding Ford to account. He's pretty much done whatever he wants, and without, people standing without any opposition. So that's a problem. That needs to stop. I'm really concerned about the long-term ramifications of the decisions that he's made. Anyway, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at, right? Like we need to, but I have a great respect for the voters of Parkdal High Park.
Yeah.
And we need to give them a really viable option that makes a lot of sense to them, that talks to the issues that they care about, and that's me. I'm the one that's, got that experience, both a life experience, professional experience, education experience. I'm the one that's been here and been doing it.
I think that I wish you all the best in the
Thank you so much.
candidacy, and hope we'll talk soon.
Yes. Okay.
Have a great afternoon.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time. All right.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.